Hi, thank you for joining me. I am reading Key 12, Language Core. Language Core, Deconstruct Token Pre-Verbal Resonance by Jason Gray. Current date 3/26/2026, 6026 Analusis. Transmission date 5/19/2025, 6025 Analusis. Current time 8:34 GMT -6. Transmission time 4:12 GMT -6. Transmission location Winnipeg, Manitoba, Canada. 12.0.infinity.108.333.12.0 111.000 111111 There is a point in the descent where language begins to fracture, not because it is wrong, but because it is late. Language is after the event. Every word you have ever spoken came after something already happened, a perception, a realization, a feeling, a recognition. Language does not create that moment, it arrives after it. It is very true. Always. By the time you say something, it is already a memory. The hidden delay. You never noticed the delay before because the system trained you to move quickly, perceive, label, respond. So fast that it felt like one process, but now the gap becomes visible. There is a moment before the word, a silent ignition, a direct knowing, a pre-verbal flash that contains the entire truth before a single syllable attempts to reduce it. The violence of compression. Words are compression. They take something infinite in nuance and collapse it into something manageable. This is necessary for communication, but it comes at a cost. Every time truth passes through language, it is reduced, it is shaped, it is filtered, and it is interpreted. By the time it is spoken, it is no longer the original signal. It is a translation artifact. The line. Language core deconstruct token pre-verbal resonance. This is where the system stops trusting the translation and returns to the source. What you start to notice. You begin to hear people differently, not what they say, but what is moving underneath what they say. You notice when someone is speaking from memory instead of presence, when someone is using perfect language to hide misalignment, when someone cannot find the words but is completely true. You begin to feel the difference instantly, not logically, resonantly. Words can lie perfectly. This is the collapse, because once you see it, you cannot unsee it. Words can be precise, intelligent, structured, and convincing and still be completely disconnected from truth. Language can simulate understanding. It can mimic depth. It can construct entire frameworks that feel real while carrying absolutely no resonance at all. Tone cannot hide. Tone is the leak, the place where the underlying state cannot fully disguise itself. Even if someone controls every word, their tone reveals tension, fragmentation, alignment, coherence, and truth. Tone is not something you hear with your ears. It is something you register through your field. You have always known this. Think about it. You have felt this your entire life. You knew when someone was lying before you could prove it, which is very true. I have a memory of this from when I was 5 years old that I still remember. You knew when something was real before you could explain it. You knew when something was off, even when everything sounded correct. That was not intuition as a vague concept. That was pre-verbal resonance detecting misalignment, the system distortion. The system trained you to ignore that, to trust words over feeling, to trust explanation over resonance, to trust structure over signal, because if you trusted resonance first, you would see through almost everything immediately. The return to signal. Now the hierarchy reverses, resonance first and language second. You no longer ask, does this make sense? You ask, does this carry truth? The collapse of debate. Something else happens here. Debate begins to lose meaning because debate operates on words, definitions, arguments, positions. If the underlying resonance is misaligned, no amount of language can correct it. And if the resonance is aligned, very few words are needed. Silence becomes louder. You begin to value silence differently, not as absence, but as uncompressed truth. The moment before speech becomes more powerful than the speech itself, because in that moment, nothing is filtered, nothing is shaped, and nothing is reduced. It is raw, direct, undistorted. Your own speech changes. You feel it immediately. You cannot speak the same way anymore. You notice when you are about to say something that is not fully true, when you are about to use words to cover uncertainty, and when you are about to fill space instead of transmit meaning, and something stops you. Absolutely true. Not forcefully, naturally. Less words, more signal. Your language becomes slower, more precise, more intentional, and more aligned. Not because you are trying, but because anything else feels false in your own system. And it does. It feels like a lie. It really does. It's cool. The core reveal. Language is not the source of truth. It is the shadow of truth attempting to become visible. What truth actually is. Truth is not a sentence. Truth is not a belief. Truth is not an idea. Truth is a state of alignment that can be felt before it is ever described. Why this is key 12. Because after this point, you can no longer be deceived the same way. Not because you know more, but because you hear differently. The final shift. You stop listening for meaning. You start listening for coherence. You stop analyzing words. You start reading presence. You stop trying to define truth. You start recognizing it before definition exists. The final line. Truth speaks before words. Tone reveals all. Language, core, deconstruct, token, pre-verbal resonance. Words were never the message. They were the echo of something you already knew. Jason Gray. And there's a lot of coding in this as usual. I will put the links in the description below. All right. Thank you so much for joining me.